Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by Sambo and Johnny. How are we, chaps?
Good.
Pretty
Excellent.
pretty warm. I
Yeah.
did not plan ahead and cool down the office before I came in here, so it's fighting an uphill battle to cool it down.
Can you feel a single bead of sweat slowly making its way down your calf?
Yes.
Nice.
Callback.
Callback to a very early episode.
Do you want to hear John say or Sam say that line for the very first time? Go on over to episode 7 of the Chaps Chat Cats archives, and you'll be delighted to find it there in its original format. Big
Just
show tonight.
No, it was pretty much at the start, wasn't it? It wasn't 2 hours into the episode. It was
No, it was very early.
pretty early on.
Big show to get to tonight, chaps. They're all big shows, particularly now as we approach the season proper. We're not too far away, but before we get into any of that, we have to just take a moment, a bit of a somber note, I guess, to start things off, and that is the sudden passing of Troy Selwood, player who obviously spent plenty of time as a Brisbane Lion and a good decade at Geelong in the VFL team, captained the Cats to a 2012 premiership. Yeah, the 40-year-old passed away suddenly, which is just absolutely tragic and far too soon. So we just wanted to take a moment to say we're sending our sympathies and thoughts to the Selwood family at what must be an incredibly, incredibly difficult time for them. So, it felt like we needed to, say that off the top because an extremely challenging time for the Selwoods. We'll now move into the show and I'll let you know what is on this evening. We are asking ourselves, well, I'm asking you guys. I don't know if I'm so much asking myself, but I'll be definitely asking you guys, and you guys provide me some answers. Crucial questions for the 2025 Cats. Okay, so these are a couple of things I've tried to drill in as the season approaches. What are we really pondering about this Geelong team heading into 2025? And I think I've boiled it down to sort of 3 or 4 really crucial questions. So we'll talk about them on the public part of the show, sort of for the next 25, half an hour. Then we're going to pop over to Patreon. We're going to do a news wrap. There's a few headlines there that we want to get to in terms of some life memberships being awarded, a little bit of blockbuster trade talk, and some selections for Geelong in the Indigenous All-Stars side. So we'll talk about that on Patreon. You hear it every week. If you want to get the Patreon part of the show, go on over, start up a 7-day free trial with the Hoops Crew Patreon. You get extended versions of our show. You get early access to different things from, Ben and Paul that might go up on the YouTube channel a few days later. VFL men's and women's coverage from me during the season and other little bits and pieces in between. So go on over and start your 7-day free trial. And the last piece of business here, chaps, before we launch into the things, is to say a massive Hoops Crew Media Network thank you to our Media Network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can go on over, visit them at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. You can phone them up on 035 222 2244, or if you want to visit them in person, go on over to Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater. And if you tell them that the Hoops Crew sent you, they will knock 20% off your next in-store purchase. Valentine's Day is on the way. Go and do yourself a favor. You listen to this podcast, make use of that fact in a monetary sense by getting 20% knocked off if you go on over and visit Cyril Cook on location. And we thank them massively for their sponsorship of not just our show, but the whole Hoops Crew Media Network. Shabang. All right, let's jump into it, chaps. Crucial questions for the 2025 Cats. Going to start you off with this one. And that is, which of Geelong's young midfielders most needs to take on the burden of the work with Dangerfield in 2025? So we're talking about this situation where Danger's starting to get, he's in the autumn of his career, moving very much towards winter. He's talked about playing on for 2 more years. Which of the midfield crop, in your opinions, is it who needs to step up and help shoulder some of the load, whether that's while Geelong are resting him, whether that's while, if he starts to decline a little bit in his performance? It does happen. We don't want to think about it, but it does happen. So, Johnny, I'll come to you first. One player for you that needs to step up.
I'm going to go pretty semi-obvious choice. I've got I know Sam might not go player I'm thinking of because he's not a young player anymore, but I'm going to pick Tanner Bruhn. I think it's time for Tanner Bruhn to. We've mentioned it before that he needs to stop worrying about trying to find that perfect pass and just get it out quicker, move it on a bit quicker. And I think that's the way he can step up because he's already really excellent at getting the clearance and getting the disposal. It's just about speeding that up a little bit more. And if he can do that, that'll go a long way to help Dangerfield this year, but not having to burden the whole midfield clearance, get the tough ball. I think Tanner Bruhn's time is now to stand up and start doing what Dangerfield can do. Like, he's not going to do exactly what Dangerfield can because there's not many players with his body frame, his speed, his power and all that. But if he can just get in there, maybe do the grunt work a bit more than what Dangerfield does to get out to Dangerfield, who can then burst away from it, or Basilinka or Max Holmes, Tom Atkins, all those players. So, yeah, I think a big shoulder should go on to Tanner Bruhn to just go, this is my time. He's been at the Cats, 2 years now? So this is a good opportunity for him to really plant his foot and also cement his spot in the side because there's a lot of competition. So it's now or never, I reckon, for Tanner Bruhn. And if he can really step in and start shouldering a lot of that centre clearance work, I think it'll go a long way to being the next excellent player for the Cats.
Yeah, he definitely, and I'm going to come to you here, Sambo, but just to add on to what Johnny's saying there, I definitely thought you saw a jump even last year from Tanner Bruhn. He went from averaging 2.9 clearances in 2023. He averaged 5.1 last season in 2024. His tackle numbers, they stayed around the same, 4.2 as opposed to 4.8 the previous year. Disposals went up a little bit, 17 and a half disposals per game instead of 16.3. So you've already seen jumps, but I agree, Johnny. I think he still has room to grow and probably needs to grow in terms of how he goes about it, with how he uses the footy. Sambo, is there a different player that comes to mind for you, or has John hit the one and only nail on the head there?
Well, it is a player. I was also going to pick Tanner Bruhn. I think you guys have sort of said it all. I think, I guess just to expand a little bit, I suppose, so it's not necessarily contrary. I think what John said is basically what I was going to say. But yeah, I think his decision making is big. Like, I think, as you said, John, moving on a little quicker, but also coupling that with taking the time when he has it. Like, I feel like he was often just caught making the opposite. So not always doing one thing, but I felt like he was often doing the thing that he shouldn't do in that scenario, and then doing the opposite the next time when you're sometimes he held it too long. He lost that opportunity. He didn't take that first bang kind of simple option. And then other times he would pick it up and just kind of kick it over his head or do some kind of just complete fluke, hope it lands somewhere when he probably could have picked it up and taken 2 steps. So I think that'll come with time and maturity. And, as you said, he's not maybe the youngest player, but he's still certainly in the younger crop at Geelong. So I think that will come for him. But I think it is a real year where I think he could take a leap. I think he could keep sort of churning along, a little bit of improvement. He just becomes one of those players that's, an important part of the team, and he does his job. But I do think he's at a stage in his sort of development at Geelong where I think if he wants to be like a legacy player, like one of those players that's just a lock every week, every year, they're scrambling to figure out contracts to keep him in. I do think that this is a year where he really should hope to like grow a lot, like not some more marginal step. Like I think keep pushing up those averages a little bit, but then have some of those games. Like I'd love, just four or five games even where you go, he's the player. Like not all season, but he's the player that won that game. Like he took those moments, those half a dozen moments in that match, put it on his shoulders. I think he does have the talent. Like I don't know if it's a mentality thing, if it's a confidence thing, but sometimes it just seems like he's not quite being able to use his talent to wrestle a game in that way. So that's kind of what I'd really like to see from him. Going forward, I think just a steady increase in all his averages, but some real spikes would be nice in some games where you just go, wow, he had more touches, career high touches, kicked a goal and two behinds or two goals and set some people, like just a real like sort of complete performance. Because I think his stat line looks okay at the moment, but it sort of sometimes feels a little bit low impact stats. Like I don't think that, like I think a lot of those stats, a lot of those tackles, clearances, etc., they never seem to be crucial moments, crucial highlight moments where you go, thank God it was him. It's more like when the team's operating well and the clearances are getting shared around, he seems to get a couple of them. But I do think I tend to be overly critical. I'm not sure why. I do tend to fall into an overly critical category of Tanner Bruin. I think it's because I think he can be so much better. I don't think he's bad or in any way a disappointment, but I just think he's nowhere near reached his ceiling at Geelong yet. So I don't know if you want me to throw another player in there, but they were my further thoughts on Tanner Bruin. I do think he's the one where we are looking at him, and this is the year, maybe halfway through the year, where if he's not yet, we may have to shift focus on someone else. But I still think this is his moment to be that guy.
Yeah, no, I think you've said it well. I think both of you have. I think you have hit the nail on the head. I think Max Holmes, would be a player that could be on some people's minds, but Max Holmes is already playing really great footy. I think we all are in the same boat that Tanner Bruin has more room to grow from where he is now to what his best footy could look like. And
if we're looking for someone to replace Dangerfield, do Dangerfield type things, that's not Max Holmes. Max Holmes is a completely different player to what Dangerfield does in each game, where Tanner Bruin, he's more of that Dangerfield type player to get it out to get the clearance, either pump it inside 50 himself or clear it out to a Max Holmes, to Bailey Smith or Tom Atkins or whoever. So that's where my mind went anyway, to a player that plays similar to Dangerfield. Because I think, as you said, Jake, Max Holmes is just about there. He's so close to being just a dominant player.
Let's use our Vikings Ragnar analogy again. Like, I don't think you can replace Patrick Dangerfield with one player. I don't think Tanner Bruin's ever going to have the burst and speed that. And for anyone who's listening to the pod for the first time, the Ragnar from Vikings thing is, and spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, after they kill Ragnar off in season 4, they try and divide the character of Ragnar sort of amongst his 4 or 5 kids and give each of them a trait of his personality. And it doesn't really work for the TV show, but we sort of think it works in a footy sense that, you can't replace Patrick Dangerfield with one player, but can we replace him with 2 or 3? I think you're right, John. I think Tanner Bruin can replace parts of Dangerfield's game. But I think Max Holmes is the one that's going to replace his speed and explosion. But I don't think there's any reason why. Like the numbers, we talked last week about benchmarks for success. a benchmark for success for me for Tanner Bruin would be to stay at least 5 or more clearances per game and to finally average 20 or more disposals this season. He's gone 16, 17 last year. I think he can push that up over 20 per game. And I think that would be a big tick for me. 20 plus disposals a game and 5 plus clearances. I think that'd be big. Let's move on to another question, Sambo. Do you have another thought? Go for it.
We should move on. We'll be here all night.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come to you here first, Sambo, because I went to Johnny first on the last one. This is about Jeremy Cameron. So I was sitting there today. There's a podcast I listened to, the Dave Damashek show or the Sheck show. He's an NFL analyst, and he has this thing that he's come up with called the Jenga piece theory. And that is, who's the one player in an NFL team that if you take that player out, everything else sort of folds around them. And I was trying to think, who's that for Geelong? Because, I think we're recruiting pretty well in the midfield. I know Danger makes a huge impact, but we've got players like Bailey Smith coming in. We've got players like Max Holmes starting to make strides. Defensively, actually feel like we showed that even, when they try and tag Tom Stewart out of the game, we've got players that can come to the fore there. So I was like, who is the Jenga piece for the Cats? I want to ask you first, Sambo, is Jeremy Cameron Geelong's Jenga piece? Now that Tom Hawkins is gone, if he's removed because of injury or something like that this season, could Geelong actually cover the loss of Jeremy Cameron in 2024 if he has injury troubles or is, God forbid, ruled out for a final series or something? Can the Cats cover him, or is he the Jenga piece?
Right up until you've just introed me into this question, I would have said no. Even see like the show notes and bringing it up, I'd certainly thought it through and had my answer of him being not being the Jenga piece, but I really hadn't taken into consideration. I mean, I had overall, but for answering this question, the fact that we've lost Tom Hawkins, and that led me to go, we haven't only lost Tom Hawkins, but also Gary Rowan. Now, I know Gary Rowan is much overlooked, might be a weird player for me to bring up here. Didn't play a lot of games, but I feel like he was such a good weapon. I'm biased, of course, but I feel like he was such a good weapon, and Geelong's forward line was so deep for so long that you could. I think that's part of why Ollie Henry's development was so good. Like it might sound counterintuitive as well, but Ollie Henry, I think, was able to develop so quickly when he came to Geelong because there was so much pressure off him. Like it was Tom Hawkins, Tyson Stengel, Jeremy Cameron, and Gary Rowan generally, and Ollie Henry was always getting a run in there, but he sort of blew everyone's socks off because he was kicking a goal or two a game, pretty much straight away. But like he was really just kind of able to be out there, not tagged, getting the fourth worst defender every single game because of course they're gonna tag Stewart, Rowan, Stewart, Hawkins, Rowan, and Stengel first.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a really interesting challenge this year. So Ollie Henry will be probably, he's not the biggest key forward. He essentially plays the key forward role for us, and he'll be the most experienced at the Cats in that sort of role, and he's not going to have a Hawkins to take the focus, and obviously that'll be Jeremy Cameron that does take the focus. So yeah, if Jeremy Cameron were to go down injured, get suspended for 4 games or something, like I do think it will be a much bigger hole than it would have been a year or two prior, because we now don't have Hawkins, obviously, but we also don't have Gary Rowan floating around the VFL / sub role that he did for a while. Like, I think you forget that Rowan didn't play a lot of games, but he was the sub for a lot of games and just never got on there, or got in there for a quarter, just at the end to give him a run around. And he was such a diverse forward and so different to what everyone would plan for to deal with Stengel, Hawkins, and Cameron, that throwing Rowan in there could really throw things off balance. So I do think that our forward line is just less diverse now. I think Neil could have a breakout year, like everyone said. He did pretty well last year. He could break out and, be a superstar. But I still don't think he's going to be prime Tom Hawkins yet. Like that would be insane. That would be one of the most insane stories if this year we're going, he's as good as Tom Hawkins. Like that's just. That's one of the most far and away out there things for me. I don't know, like just the prospect of that, like maybe in a few years, but this year. So like Tom, I'm waffling, but Tom Stewart definitely was our Jenga piece, say 3 years ago. But I think we've had to go without him so consistently, and generally always for more than a few games. Like when he was suspended, it was 4 games. Like his when he did his Liz Frank, that was. What was that? That was another 4 games, wasn't it? 4 or 5, 6 games.
Yeah, I think so. End of 2021. Yep.
Yeah, that was a big chunk. Like I think we have had to deal with his absence so much, and obviously the biggest, longest one was this tagging thing that happened. That I no longer think that I think Tom Stewart is an incredibly important player. So when he is out there and playing well, he's in the top 3 most important players on the ground. But when we are without his impact for whatever reason, I just think we've got so much in the tank to call upon. Whereas, Jeremy Cameron, I don't know that we have the depth or the experience of dealing with his absence to really recover from that. If that's in crucial games against big opposition for a stretch of games, basically I've turned around my whole thing I had written, sort of pre-prepared has gone out the window, and that's why I'm rambling because I think you're right. I think he is the Jenga player, definitely probably the biggest impact loss of all our players were we to lose him for some reason.
221 goals for the Cats, Johnny. In his 4 seasons with us. You agree with Sambo there? He's the Jenga piece, the hardest to replace of all Geelong's players.
Oh yeah, easily. Like we just don't have a player to replace him yet. Shannon Neal is the next big key forward that we've got, but he's not a Jeremy Cameron. No one is a Jeremy Cameron because we don't have a player. No one has a player like Jeremy Cameron in their team. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, for me, like he's biggest Jenga piece since Lloyd Selwood, and then after that was Sam said Stewart, and now it's Cameron easily. Yeah, it's just pretty much impossible to replace a player of his absolute freakish abilities, running, his kicking, marking, just how he gets up and down the ground within a flash. Yeah, there's like I'm holding out hope that Shannon Neal will become our next big key forward. But that's going to be like a Tom Hawkins type player, and that's still a long, long way away. Like I'm not expecting that for the next 2, 3, 4 years before we see prime Shannon Neal. But I'm not expecting him to be a Jeremy Cameron. But as I said, we just don't have. I don't think there's going to be another player anytime soon like Cameron that can do the things that Cameron does week in, week out. Like he's just one of those freakishly talented players. No matter what he does, he just turns to gold. So, he's definitely our Jenga piece. Can we replace him for a few rounds? Possibly, but it's going to be really tough. So, it's just, he is our Jenga piece. If he goes down, gets suspended, or does an injury, hopefully, then it'll be a nervous few weeks. I'll be very nervous going into those however many rounds if we somehow miss him. So he is it.
Yeah, no, I like that. All right, final one here, and Johnny, I'll go to you first, and that is what 2024 weakness do we most need to see ironed out in 2025? So, obviously we made a prelim final last year, but I think even we would agree we weren't a perfect team. There
Yep.
were flaws there. We had to coach our way around some stuff. We had to, piece things together with scotch tape and popsicle sticks, to quote the Star Wars original trilogy remaster special features for anyone deep cut there. So yeah, what is it for you, Johnny? What is that 2024 flaw that you want to see fixed, that's most crucial to see fixed for the Cats in 2025?
Well, I would say midfield, but we still did really well in that midfield. And I'm being very one-eyed cat supporter. I don't see too many weaknesses in this team. But I think it will just be that. I think it's just that midfield mix of those players, just getting it sorted out, seeing who goes where, just being a bit more dominant. And that I've been talking and being able to think, it's also the run on games we let the opposition have throughout games is when we're on top, but staying on top, we're doing really well, and then we have that bit of brain fade or game awareness or whatever. The opposition gets on top, and we just can't seem to stop them. That is one big thing that I think we need to really find out and why that's happening and get that fixed. And I feel like the Cats have been working on that with getting Bailey Smith in to the side, a few other young players from the rookie draft, a few ruckmen as well. I feel like they've noticed that weakness, and hopefully with Smith there, that bit more experience, that big body, just to play a big tackle, a crucial moment might be that turning point that stops the opposition from getting a run on goals and lets us get a goal back at a really crucial time to swing the momentum back our way, even though there is no such thing as momentum in the AFL game.
No, absolutely.
So yeah,
it's a myth.
Big swings of momentum going against us at pretty big moments of the games where we just let the opposition get 3, 4, 6 goals on in quick succession before we can do anything. And then, yeah, we saw it in the prelim against Brisbane. We just couldn't stop them. So yeah, that's one big thing I think the Cats need to work on, and it feels like they are with the getting of Bailey Smith.
The games that come to mind for me are obviously the prelim, just their ability to go out of the middle with it. The Carlton game that we actually won the first time around, and then they kicked I don't know what it was, but it was like something like 6 goals in 7 minutes or 4 goals in 5 minutes. And the Saints loss, there were a few last year, I think, that were marred by that. The Sydney game. Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely one that came to mind for me, Johnny. How do we get back to being a Geelong team that, when you've got your back to the wall, can actually go into that mode of let's slow things down and take control of the game again, take the life out of it, and then respond, as opposed to just being caught on the back foot for like a whole quarter or half a quarter, and then you're really in deep shit. Sambo, is it the same thing for you, or do you have an alternative here, a weakness that needs to be fixed up for the Cats from 2024 as we head to 2025?
I think that is the one, but you guys have covered it. So, and I think this one links in because part of that flow on is just not being able to lock it up forward, and just letting them rebound too easily. So the thing I'm going to talk about is and I talked about it last year frequently, is the diversity of inside 50s, the diversity of avenues to goal. Because I think what we saw a lot, especially from some of the younger guys, your Tannen Bruins, your Dempsey, those kinds of guys that were getting a lot of ball and had so much pluck, and so much will to we're going to take this game and turn it around, was we just kept banging our heads against the wall when it came to actually delivering it inside 50. You're kicking it to Cameron. Cameron's being double teamed, and we're still just kicking it to him every single time. Or Ollie Henry's, not got his gloves on, and we're still kicking it 2 feet above his highest leap, assuming he's going to be able to get up there. Like, I think that's part of it too. I think the reason they were able to rebound so much and our forward push was ineffective was because we were making those inside 50 turnovers so easy for the opposition. So I'd like to see what we did early in the year a couple of times. Some of those, the shorter balls inside 50, let someone have a kick from 46, 50 meters out. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Someone taking a mark on the arc and hand pass it to a rampaging Max Holmes to roost it from outside the 50. Not always kicking straight into the square. More lateral deliveries. Get Brian Myers back to his best of running down one of the wings, coming in, looking like he's going to chip it into the pocket, and then just cut it back to someone dead in front, 45 out. Like I think our inside 50s were so predictable 75% of the time last year that it really made our very potent forward line just a little too easy to deal with in those patches where our form was down. So I think this relates to what you guys are talking about, stopping their form, stopping their momentum by making our turnover game more effective, our clearance game more effective. We're probably not going to beat the opposition in center clearances by a mile every game, but if we can make those deliveries from that point more effective, I think that is really something we need to sharpen up. It always felt like this big push to get it up to somewhere around the 50, and then just lob it in there into the as close to goal as we can, and then act surprised when we get outmarked, goes through for behind, goes through for a throw in. I just think it was so common.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I totally agree with that. I think both men's and women's team for the Cats could probably take that.
Yeah.
All right, those are our crucial questions for the 2025 Cats. Feel free to leave your opinions on it in the comments, or if you think there was another crucial question maybe we should be asking, pop that in the comments as well. We might be able to revisit it during the season. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. We'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button or the follow button, whether you're on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Chuck us a 5-star rating. We would muchly appreciate it. Going to go over now and do a quick news wrap for our Patreon subscribers. So if you want that part of the show, sign up for a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew, aiming to hit 50 paid subscribers by the end of the 2025 footy season. We're currently over halfway there. So if you want to help us get to 50, go on over, start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Next week, we are going to be right on near the start of the footy season. What will be a week away from our match sim against Hawthorn.
29 days
we'll
from
be sort of
OP.
Wow. Oh my goodness. All right. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.